Hey friends, got to take my medicine, which is perfect for this video. Between the Worlds. You can't really see that, but it's fucking awesome. I'm almost done with this. So today I want to talk about spirit guides, fairies, ghosts, demons, elementals. Um, I've had experiences with pretty much all of these different spirit beings. And so what's really prompting me to record this video is, one, I love talking about this shit. And two, I had a dream this morning that in the dream, well, firstly, to back it up before I even get to the dream, I just recently finished an audiobook by Dolores Cannon called Conversations with a Spirit, and basically in between death and life or something like that. So Conversation with the Spirit in between death and life. And so Dolores Cannon, if you aren't familiar with her work, she was a past life regressionist. So she would put her clients in the deepest level of trance. And through this hypnosis experience, they would be so deep that when they came out, they had no recollection of what they said, what happened. And she recorded all of these on cassette tapes. This started in the 80s, 70s or 80s. And continued until she died, which was in 2014. And so, yeah, she took these individuals into the deepest level of trance. And usually the people, most of the people that would come and see her had some type of illness that they were dealing with, and they just couldn't, either handle the pain, or they just wanted to know, why. And, they've tried so many different things, and they still couldn't really do away with it. And so she had this reputation of, if you had just one session with her, she was able to figure out what was going on and help you relieve yourself of that. So she was essentially healing these people too, with just in one visit. So she's seen hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's so good. Anyways, so she saw hundreds and hundreds of people, and through these experiences, she created her books. And so with pretty much every past life regression session she had, she would take her clients through the death of whatever life came through. So whatever past life they were in, she would take them through the death of that life, because she said you got so much information, especially if they were having health issues, like you got a lot of information from that point of their death in that life, because usually there's some kind of trauma that, they were dealing with, and that it carries on into the next lifetime if they haven't really, released or healed that. And so that was kind of a unique thing to her practice, because a lot of therapists were afraid to take their clients into that deep of a state and definitely take them through how they died, because they weren't sure like what was going to happen. And so her book, as far as like what happens when you die, really came about unintentionally. She was taking, I don't even know, she wasn't taking them, into the death phase, but it just happened. And maybe this is how she ended up starting to take her clients through this death phase. But our client was in a regression, and then all of a sudden, they died. I think they died in their sleep, or something happened where she ended up talking to the spirit outside of the body, and beyond the veil, on the other side of the veil. And then that's how this whole concept developed, or this whole practice that she worked in. And so I have been reading her book, and one of the things that stood out to me was, this connection with ghosts, and how with ghosts, sometimes they tend to cling to a certain experience, and they have these echoes of themselves, or echoes of their spirit in a particular space, which could be like a house, like their home, or a place they frequented a lot, like a bar or work or something like that. But there are these echoes of the spirit there, which I'll get into later in this video. But last night, or I guess this morning, I had a dream that I was with a group of people. Some of the people I knew, some of the people I didn't know. And we were at this house. We were living in this house, which kind of felt like my grandparents' house when I thought about it after the fact. I was like, there were different floors. And so on this one particular floor where this ghost was lingering, there was my room, there was a bathroom, and then there was like another room that led upstairs to a different room, to like a bigger room, which is kind of like my grandparents' house, because there were like 4 different levels, but it was a row house in Pennsylvania. And they, like if you know anything about the row houses on the East Coast, they're just so big. Like they're narrow, but they're huge. And so I remember there was like one room where you would go in, and I think it was like the master bedroom, but then like you would go in, there was like a little room, but then you had stairs to go up to the big room, which was crazy. And it was kind of like, for me as a child, I was, I didn't really want to go up there alone, which who knows, maybe I was sensing something, but that's kind of how this house was. And so I remember that, in the dream, at some point, the ghost definitely made itself known. It was definitely kind of like poltergeist energy. And so we couldn't ignore it. And I remember being in the room, and I actually have in real life experience with, cleansing people's homes. I definitely connect with ghosts. They connect with me telepathically. I don't see them. There have been a few instances where I have, but usually I just like feel them and I hear them. And so I've had experiences with so I kind of know what to do. But in the dream, it was funny because I remember we were in the bedroom, and we knew that it was in the room, or at least I did. And like people were just like talking and whatever. And so I grabbed a mirror, which is like pretty much the same mirror I have here on my desk, the small handheld mirror. And I like put it like just facing the door. And I saw there was an older woman, and I was like, hey, so I see the ghost. It's an older woman and it's standing right behind you. I remember that, which was kind of funny. And they kind of freaked out, which now that I'm saying this made me think of an instance of, I had that own experience. And I'll explain that later too, when we talk about demons and possession. But that kind of was something I experienced. And so then I remember like things started to turn up, and everyone's freaking out. And I was like, look, like we can't cleanse this space. Like it's either we help this spirit like move along and show them the way, or we leave. And I mean, the whole point is I came out of the dream and I was just like, that was interesting. It was like one of those dreams where it just like felt like it like really, really happened, or just felt significant. And then I was like, I need to share with people what I've learned about these different spirits and like my own personal experience with them. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to talk about all of the different, different points of spirits, like whether it's guides, guardian angels, demons, ghosts, elementals, the devil, and my experiences with pretty much, I've had experiences with almost all of these entities. And yeah, I just love talking about this stuff. So let's get into it. So guides can be anything. It could be an animal. It could be a guardian angel or an archangel. It could be a family member that has died and hasn't incarnated into a body yet. But the point of guides they are assigned to you. Usually you're definitely assigned one at birth. And so these guides are assigned to you based on your needs, based on your intentions, based on your purpose. And so they can also change, come in and out and come in and go as needed. So if you change something about your purpose, then you might have another guide in. So for myself, as an example, I didn't really come into connection or like knowingness of my guides until recently, a couple years ago, and it was Archangel Michael. And I learned of him through a friend. This was actually, I actually was fortunate enough to know who my guide was before, like sometimes you know that you have a guide, but you're not sure exactly who it is. Which that's usually the case. With Archangel Michael, I knew that he was around before I actually knew that he was my guide. And it was like him and Green Tara I was closely connected with. And with Archangel Michael, I just started, feeling his presence. And, I started working with Pamela Ehrlin too. And she's really connected to Archangel Michael. One of my past roommates were really connected with Archangel Michael. So I just kept hearing it. And then I just really enjoyed the energy. And so that's how I knew. But then also what came later was Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. So right now, I would say my main guides are Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Archangel Michael, and Archangel Gabriel. He definitely comes in and out, or they, because Archangel Gabriel is kind of androgynous. So whenever I say he, then I'm like, no, she. But then when I say she, I'm like, no, he. So if you're familiar with Archangel Gabriel, that's just kind of the energy is just like oneness, And usually the other, like Yeshua is oneness too. And he definitely has feminine energy, but obviously we perceive him as a him. But so those are my main guides. And whenever I come into contact with them, usually Mary Magdalene comes through during when I do my travels. And I don't remember even how she came through or how I just knew, but she just kind of showed up. And she's definitely my guide in these travels. I hear her behind me. And she takes me, like when I used to consistently do travels, I would definitely go through the void at certain times. So whenever I would go through different lifetimes or different like dimensions or planes, I would always go through the void. And she would be walking with me, guiding me. Sometimes Lilith came through, Archangel Michael, Yeshua. But I always would definitely, there's always Mary Magdalene. She's always present. And once I made that connection with her, she has always been there. And I feel like she's always been there, but I just, I hadn't known. Yeshua came through also working with Pamela. Once I made that connection and I had a lot of karma and just like, stagnant energy and kind of, what's the word? Not a grudge, but just like unresolved issues with, Christianity growing up Seventh-day Adventist. And so it was hard for me to even acknowledge Jesus or Yeshua. And so at the point that when I did, he was there, boom. And he helps me with my astrology, cosmology. His Oversoul Serapis Bay comes through and helps with sacred geometry. So any practices that I've developed, that I've came up with have been through the guidance of Serapis Bay and Yeshua, which is funny because, people get so weird about Jesus. And I'm like, actually, he's very like sciencey. He's very connected to universal energy and really just like playing with energy, and like he's the jam. And so one of the biggest things about the guides though is that when you're connecting with your guide, and don't really, and especially if you're a beginner at it, like the first thing I would do is just like feel their energy, because that's what's most important. Before I knew, so I knew about Archangel Michael, I knew about Green Tara, but I didn't know about any others. And I knew that there were other guides. And so one of my intents, which you guys can try, is if you want to know who your guides are by name, then just ask. Like what I did was I wrote in my journal, I meditated on the question. I'm like, I want to know who my guides are. I also did a sleeping exercise too, because, you can get certain individuals, if you're aware, if you have like very vivid dreams, you can get, guidance and answers and stuff from your dreams and connect, obviously, because you're in your body's sleeping, but your spirit isn't, and it's traveling. And so I also wrote on a piece of paper, my question, my intention, and then I put it under my pillow and, went to bed. And so nothing really manifested, and I forgot about it. And then I remember I was doing a travel, one of my deep meditations, trance meditation, and it just came through, and it was all of them. And I felt very comforted and I felt at home. And like, as soon as I came out of it, and I actually have what I wrote, and it wasn't in this notebook, it was in a different notebook. But as soon as I came out of it, because I asked, who are my guides? And I want to know in order, from most dominant to least dominant. So in order from, I'll just show you guys. I'm so excited to have it here. So this is exactly what I drew in a different journal, and then I put it at the beginning of this journal. But Mother Mary, this symbol came through like hardcore. Mother Mary came through, which is that grandmother energy I was really connected with at the time. And then you see you have the dark mothers here, and I have Lilith, Kali, Hecate. But then these main guides here, if you see, there's Yeshua, Archangel Michael, Green Tara. Hopefully that's coming in clear. Archangel Gabriel, and it goes down. But it was funny because I didn't pick this order. I just wrote, and I wrote it like this when I came out of it. And I wasn't super close with Yeshua at the time, so I was like really surprised that Yeshua was number one. Now it makes sense. But I was just like, wow, this is awesome. So if you are wanting to learn, if you've already made that connection, you feel that guide's energy and that presence. And if you want to know how, who they are, just ask and be patient and just release it, let it go, forget about it. And then it'll definitely come to you at some point and you'll just know. But definitely keep your eyes and your ears open, your third eye open, and pay attention to what you read and what you see, because, the way the world works now, especially with technology, our spirit guides connect with us through technology. So you could be reading something online, or you could be on Instagram and you keep seeing, ISIS over and over again, ISIS, 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 and then boom, like you're like, oh, I feel like this is my guide. But one of the things too is also paying attention to, like I was saying, your feeling when you feel that guide around, or when you're in meditation, or you just feel safe, like kind of take note of that feeling. So for me, with Archangel Michael, it's always in this pelvic region here, in the sacral area, in the root chakra. I feel just a lot of heat. And sometimes I feel like it's so much heat where I physically get sweaty down there. And then I feel like this tingling sensation. I have this weird relationship with Archangel Michael, but he's definitely connected to, from what I've learned, the root chakra and the sacral chakra. And there's like supposedly fire at his feet. And so when the one instance where I started getting into channeling, and I was doing my Buddhist meditations and doing the chants, and like in the middle of the chant, I was just like feeling myself, and I was just feeling so connected. I'm like, I want to be a channel. I want to be a medium for everyone. And I allow Archangel Michael and Green Tara. And I was very specific. I was like, only those two can come through me. I want to be a channel. I want to share that information. And then I said that, then I kept chanting. And then all of a sudden I felt like my feet get really hot, and then it just kind of spread up to the point where I had a sweatshirt on. I had to take the sweatshirt off, take my shirt off, and it became really intense. I got super anxious, and I was just like, dude, you got to step out. Like, this is way too intense for me. Like, and it was funny because then at some point, like when I was in like a silent meditation, in the same sitting, I was like, he came through and he was like, there's nothing to fear. Be careful what you ask for. Like, this is a lot of energy. This is a really big deal. And then at that point, I was just like, okay, I need to like get some books on this. I think that's when I started taking the channeling and mediumship course. And yeah, but that was definitely something I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is for real. With Yeshua, whenever he comes through, I just feel like love, and I feel like I just cry sometimes. I'm just like, oh my God, I love you so much, Yeshua. And Mary Magdalene's kind of just like a nurturing energy that's just so beautiful, and I just love her energy. So, but yeah, so guides, yeah. And like I was saying, guides could be deceased loved ones. It could be animals, and it can be angels. But they are definitely, there's always a guide with you at some point. They may come and go. They may switch out. Archangel Gabriel comes in because I do a lot of communicating. That's a part of my work, is just sharing everything that I experience and that I learn. And I get anxiety even doing a recording. This isn't even live, and I get anxiety. And so I feel that they come to really help me with that a lot. They definitely show up, and it's a very warm pink kind of love energy, also oneness. So that is guides. So I want to talk about the devil. The devil is not as scary as we, project it to be. And what I've learned from this book, from Dolores Cannon's work also, is that, well, firstly, I had my own opinions about the devil before I read this book. So I have had experiences with all different kind of energies, like I said. And, I was doing my studies, and I definitely understand that, I definitely agree with the fact that everything is love. Everything stems from that oneness. But it was like, I understood that and I felt that, but then maybe I felt that, but I still didn't really understand negative energy, because I'm like, look, I've been possessed before. Like, I know that negative entities, negative energies, negative spirits exist. So how the fuck does this work, right? If everything's love. And so in my own opinion, what I came up with was that we basically, through our collective fear, have given life to, to this energy, and it's literally manifested in physical form. So what I mean by that is that our collective fear, meaning wars, murders, theft, rape, just like, depression, anxiety, all of these very low vibrational frequencies, experiences, events have, we put so much energy into them, just even the fear of it, that we have collectively created this manifestation, apparent as a physical manifestation, but supposedly it's just energy, which I get that. And then we see it as we see things, we're projecting that, but it has really created itself, physically. So this is something that we've created. Evil or the devil really doesn't exist on any other plane, except the earth plane, and, in the levels on the dimensions within the earth. The levels of the planes of existence within the earth is what I'm trying to say. So that is where evil exists. And what evil really is basically something else that we put energy into because we don't want to take responsibility for our own actions. And I like the example that they gave in the book of, you need positive and negative energy. And really what it is just like polarities. You have these different perspectives on the scale. And so they gave the example of a car battery. In order to get a car started, you have to have, both connectors, to, the positive and negative side. If you just have it on the positive side, nothing's going to happen. If you just have it on the negative side, nothing's going to happen. But if you have it on both and you have things balanced, then you get that energy, you get that life force, that, charge, right? And so that's kind of how it works. And so it's more so when we lean so much to one side, and in particular with this, you lean so much to the negative and you put a lot of energy and belief into the negative. That's how you get these negative, manifestation, these entities. And that's where, the aspect of like, oh, the devil made me do it. It's like, no, bitch, like you did that shit. Like, don't try to put that fucking blame on something external that doesn't even exist. And now, since so many people have believed in it and we put so much energy into it, now it is an actual physical manifestation. So we have the power to really do away with that energy, but it's more so we have to step outside of fear and realize that we can command our own energy, our own reality, and work within that. So that's the devil in a nutshell. Alrighty, so since we were on the topic of the devil, we can talk about demons. So demons, according to Dolores Cannon's work, is warped elementals or warped spirits. So I didn't even mention elementals, but elementals are, they originated with the formation of the earth, and they are pure energy and emotions. And so they feed off of energy and emotions. And so they can be, usually, ideally, everything's love. And so by it being warped, then there's this magnetism to the warped energy, or like the negative energy, or the negative emotions, the lower emotions. And so these energies have been warped through those means of, like I was saying before, like murders and wars and rape and devastation and disease and stuff like that. And so you have these elementals here that just exist, right? And they can be considered demons. they feed upon emotion. So the way this works in regard to possession, actually, I'm just going to start dumping this because there's not even like, I'm really going to be in between worlds now. So good. Oh my God. So the way the possession works is that, so for an individual, they, okay, center myself with the tincture work. It's magic. Yeah, so I'm not even stoned. This is a problem. So the way the possession works is that with the individual, there is an imbalance. So there could be a damaged aura, or say like, you're just really taking on a lot of heavy karma, and you're just like, when you're really, really down and out, you have super, super low vibrations, and they're just like this void within, right? And this void works as a vacuum. And so these elementals, these warped elementals, these warped spirits ended up becoming attracted to that. And it's not even their own intention. They're not seeking you out, being like trying to feed on you. It's just like they are attracted to it like a magnet to whatever that void is going on within. And so they're attracted, you take that on, and then it becomes this whole cycle of it feeding off of you. And at some point you become way more imbalanced, and they have a greater influence on just your actions. And then, from what stereotypically comes forth when people are possessed, as far as like, their actions or being violent or shit like that, that is due to the energy that's existing within. It's a disordered energy. It's already out of balance. It's already warped. It's very chaotic. So with that being existing within the body, then that's how it comes out. It's very chaotic. This is not normal. It can't be contained in a sense too. So this is how it's reflected out, or projected out as violence and shit like that. And so let's see what else I was going to say. Yeah. So, and this is how it becomes more draining because it's so chaotic and there's a lot of energy that it becomes draining, and then there you go. Right. And so there's no, and it's funny because I do say, when I say these things, I say it as just like, as it's fact. But when I connect with certain ideas and certain concepts, I connect with it. Like when it feels right, it feels right. And so this made so much sense to me because I've experienced possession. And so my experience with that, and I'll try to not make this a long story, but I was going through a divorce at this time, so I wasn't in the right space. And I was living in a very weird place. It was in Boulder, so that's funny enough. Boulder, you would think that, Boulder has a lot of weird energy though. But I was living in Boulder, and I was living in this apartment complex, and it was like weird energy over there. And so my ex-husband and I, or husband at the time, had just moved in this apartment, and it was like, there was only 2 floors. So there was an apartment above us, and we had our own individual door. It wasn't even like a building, but there was like a row of apartments on the first floor, and then you walk up the stairs and there was a row of apartments upstairs. And then you have rows adjacent to each other. And so we were on the first floor, on the ground floor, and there was someone above us that was like just really, really loud. And I was like, damn, I thought it was like a small family that lived up there. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? They're loud as fuck. And then I found out that it was just a young guy who was partying a lot, drinking, stumbling, falling, doing a lot of drugs. And there have been instances, like 2 instances, where he had been carried out of his apartment on a stretcher. Because maybe he OD'd, I don't know. But as time went on, I'm someone who's very sensitive to my environment. And so my 4th house is ruled by, it's ruled by Aquarius, but I have, in the 4th house, I have Mars and Venus, and they're in Pisces. And so my Mars and Venus in the 4th house, I have like this Pisces Cancer mix, which is very sensitive to home environment, Mars and having a Scorpio rising, I'm very sensitive to just energies. Like I feel it in my body. And so at some point I started feeling sick to my stomach. I couldn't sleep. So I told my husband at the time, I'm like, look, we got to fucking get out of this apartment because like, I don't know what the fuck's happening upstairs, but I can't sleep and I feel sick and this is like gross. And so he was like, okay, cool. And so I contacted the apartment people and I was like, can we move into a different unit? Because I just can't, and I expressed my concerns. I'm like, I can't live under people. I need to be upstairs, whatever. And so they were like, okay, totally fine. But we only have one apartment available. And this apartment, just to let you know, full disclosure, it was infested with roaches. And right now, it's being treated. So it should be fine. And this apartment had been vacant for a little bit too. So red flags all over the place. However, in my current apartment, I had started seeing roaches. And so I was like, okay, like we're already seeing roaches in this apartment. At least that apartment is being treated. So that's fine. I just want to get the fuck from under this person. So we ended up moving into this apartment and literally, I kid you fucking not, I'm not fucking bullshitting you. This guy that was up above me, he fucking OD'd and died in his apartment 2 weeks after we moved out. And I was like, see, I fucking told you. I knew that shit. Like, my intuition is when I actually, like, listen, that shit is on point. Sometimes I don't listen, especially back then. I wasn't really listening. Now I live my life by it. But back then I was like, every so often. And so that happened. Also, I didn't mention there was a woman living across from me that she had been in her early 40s, but she was definitely doing drugs and she was doing a lot of Native American rituals and playing with that stuff. And she was very reckless, not responsible. She's weird. She always kept trying to get me to come to her apartment. I'm like, no, dude, like I'm not going in there. And during this time, I wasn't actually like really on my spiritual path. Like I always had my tarot cards and astrology and stuff like that, but I was in college. This was my last semester. And I just wasn't really like putting energy into that. And I was also like not happy in my marriage because this is right before we were getting divorced. But yeah, so there was like weird energy all around this space. And so we moved into this new apartment, 6 months later, we're divorced, he moves out. Like within this time, I did start doing rituals and stuff like that and started getting into witchcraft again, like on a regular basis. And I was not being responsible. Like I was casting circles and stuff, but I was like being like love and light. Like I wasn't being very specific on who I was working with. I was just calling in all kinds of energy. So fair warning, be very careful when you do that. I definitely had to learn the hard way, and I would not take this experience back from anybody or for anything. Like this was very necessary in my evolutionary growth. But anyways, so once my ex moved out, I started seeing spirits in the house, in the apartment. It got to a point where I was cleansing my house, like doing a full whole house blessing with the salt, the sage, the water, sweetgrass, all the things. I started doing that. Like it started like once a week or every other week to like 2 or 3 times a week. Like it was bad. That shit didn't work. Like at some points, like the smudge and the sage and shit does not work depending on what you're working with. And so I was kind of in denial. You know what? I was like, I knew it was there, but I wasn't going to speak about it. I wasn't going to say anything. And I was having fucking nightmares where I would wake up in puddles of sweat. And this was a very short period of time. Like I didn't stay there long after this started happening, but I had a friend come over and we were doing a card reading and we were like really into it. We had the candles lit. We had like the witchy music, and I'm doing her reading and she basically sees what I saw, like as far as one of the spirits. And she told me, she was like, oh my God, I just saw something, lean into your room. I just saw something in a doorway. And I was like, what was it? And she described it and it was everything that I've been seeing. And if you've had that experience where you always like, you see shit and then someone else sees the same thing. And then you're like, fuck, this is actually real. And we just freaked the fuck out. We left. I stayed at her house for like 3 days. I came back, shit turned up. And this is when the possession really kicked in. I started seeing like dark energies coming through the window, like just like crawling dark black, like things. And During this time, though, the good thing was during this time, I was doing green Tara practice with a very authentic, it was like a very like legit practice with a ricochet. And a small group of people, and it was like almost a 3-hour practice, and we were doing chants and singing, and so at least I was doing this, right? So I had this layer of protection, and this is why I'm saying I like now looking back on it, reflecting it, this was so necessary for me to channel, because I've always had a fear. I've always felt like, this call to mediumship and channeling, but I've always had a fear of possession. And guess what? I had to have that experience to be able to open myself up to do what I'm doing now. But so I was doing the green tar practice. So at least I had that helping and that protective shield. And so the guy that I was doing the practice with that introduced me to green Tara, I had him come over, and he was a seasoned witch. And he came and did some mantras and stuff, but he was like, whatever is here doesn't like you doing this practice, because I would do the green tar practice at home too. And so he, that didn't work. Eventually I had to move out, and I had to, this is why I understand when they say like, sometimes like if you have shit like that going on, it doesn't matter if you move, because this was definitely existing within me. And, I had to personally do my own work to get rid of it. And so the good thing, and I'm so happy that I was doing green Tara practice, even when at some point I had stopped doing it with the group, but I was definitely doing on my own at least once a week, usually twice a week. And so that made so much sense to me when I heard in the book, when they were like, the only way to really get rid of, like, say, if you are possessed, if you have something attached to you, the only real way to get rid of it is to restore balance within yourself. And so, through meditation, also asking your guides, for assistance and like what you can do to really just like, really restore balance within yourself and like increase your vibrational frequency. And so luckily enough for me, this was just what I was doing already. I was doing the green tar practice. And by that I was, and I was out of that space. So that at least helped that I was out of that negative space. And I was living in a house that had very high vibrational frequency. Like everyone was, spiritual in their own right. And so, it took a little bit of time, but I definitely, started to feel like myself again. And so I really understand like how that works, where it's like, the only real way to get rid of that stuff is by, doing the work of like meditation and just like, trying to, increase your vibrational frequency. Also, one thing that was interesting too in the book, they said that you can command, that energy to leave in the name of Christ or the name of God, which I was just like, oh, really? Like, interesting. But yeah, you can't just say it, you have to feel it and you have to command it. And the I am, just saying that I call upon the I am in me and being very strong in that. And I actually have some videos on my YouTube in regard to how to do that, I think. But the I am is very powerful. And I definitely learned that from experience and from my teacher. And so that is, how you work with that. And so that is demons for you. All right, guys. So ghosts. Want to talk about ghosts? More in between worlds. I can't ever take enough of this stuff. That's it. All right, so ghosts. What do y'all know about ghosts? I feel like everyone's had an experience with a ghost, whether they want to admit it or not. I am definitely, this is probably what I feel the most comfortable with. Although sometimes it can feel uncomfortable depending on the particular ghost and spirit. But according to Dolores Cannon's work in this book, so there are a few different types of ghosts. So the first ghost is a projection of your own reality. So say if you're in this fear moment and whatever, and like you project what you're seeing. I get that to a certain extent. I don't know if I've ever had, I feel like when I was younger, I would watch horror movies and stuff with my friends, and we would like just be like freak ourselves out. I just love freaking myself out. And so I think that could be that, or just a projection of like what your thought process is. And like if you're able to really, really focus hard on whatever this feeling is, then you will project some type of image, and then that will, that could give you that sense of ghost feeling. And then another ghost aspect is this idea of okay, so this is the ghost that you see when it isn't a projection of reality, when there's actually a being there. So for example, my friend and I went to the Oxford Hotel last week, and she took me there because she was like, oh, this hotel is haunted, which it fucking is. And we just like went and kind of like walked around and stuff and had our own little experience. That was fun. But as we left out of the hotel, there was a guy that worked there, and he was like plowing the property, snow plowing, or shoveling. And so he was like, oh, hey, did you guys like go in? Da, da, da. And we're like, yeah. And he was like, how'd you like it? We're like, oh, it's cool. And my friend was like, is this place haunted? And he was like, yeah. And he told us about the story. And pretty much what happened is that a woman, and this was probably back in the 1800s sometime. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's the 1800s. But anyways, she was in the hotel, and this is the oldest hotel in Denver. So she would frequently see this guy in this hotel. She found out that she was the mistress, and so she killed him at the hotel, and then she killed herself. And it took him a long time to die compared to her. And so what is said is that she kind of stayed around to like help him move on or whatever, like to, she was already out of the body. He was still kind of alive and dying. And so she lingers around, which is funny because he said that it's funny. He was like, people come there all the time because like, obviously it's known that, or not obviously, but in the ghost spirit world of entertainment too, they know that it's haunted. So he'll get people like ghost hunters and shit like that coming in, and he's like, whatever. But then it's like, it's really cool when like, say a business guy comes in and he's staying, the weekend or whatever there. And he comes down and is like, some weird shit happening. Can you please change my room? And so he was just like, that shit's fucking funny, but like, it's legit. Something's happening there. So the way this works is that, particularly when a spirit dies, or, when a person dies, and say if it's like a murder or something like that, and it's very sudden, especially if it's something bad they did, they come out of the body and they might be aware that they died, but they don't want to face up to that karma. And so they attach themselves to that area, and they keep reliving that scene over and over again, and they don't want to deal with it, or they just like can't really let go of that energy and that emotion, and they just hold on to that emotion, and then they're there. And then also you have ghosts that, they don't want to leave, or they might not even understand. Say if they did, like something happened, they did get killed or whatever, and they are confused, and they're so attached to the physical that they have, let's see, the consciousness has locked and focused in on that traumatic event so much that they are pretty much earthbound to like but it's an echo of the spirit. Oof, where's my leg is falling asleep. So yeah, I'm looking at my notes too, because I just want to make sure I get this right, how they explain it. So yeah, this example of the ghost is that the consciousness of a spirit is locked and focused into a traumatic event so much that they are unaware of guides trying to help them move on. So it's like they're so attached to this experience and to the physical that they are not receptive of the guides that are there waiting for you to help you move along and transition onto the next plane of existence, the spiritual plane. And so that happens. Those are the kind of ghosts I feel like I've had experiences with. And, the consciousness or the spirit will focus in on a particular familiar, either an event or a place, right? Or it could be obviously a place that the event happened. Say if there was like with the instance with the hotel, that murder was there, that was very significant. That was the last thing they remembered. And there was a lot of intense emotion there that they are locked in. And so the only way really to help them is like, that's when humans and mediums can really be a bigger help, because they're closer to that spirit, because the spirit is like very, very close to the physical plane, and it's not moving along. And so that's when the medium comes in as very, very helpful to like guide that spirit along, to show them like, hey, like, it's okay. Like there's assistance with you, and this is how you move on, whatever, comes through. Like, I haven't had training in that. Actually, I kind of have. But that was more of the channeling aspect, not the like way shower is what I like to call them, showing them the way. But I definitely feel, especially after that dream this morning, I feel like that could be like a next level in my, as part of my work, is because I always connect with the ghosts. They like telepathically connect with me. I might not see them, but I can understand what's going on and what the deal is. There is a ghost at my work, and it lingers in the back of the shop. And there's like this long hallway to a back door. It's a very old building, and it's usually pretty cool, unless like there are times where it just wants attention. Like, it's like, and we have a place where we give it offering. We'll give it food and water and tea and flowers and plants and stuff like that. But there was a time recently we had our holiday work party, and so we had Ethiopian food. It was awesome. And then it was like the next day, I just felt weird. And I was just like, and I just felt weird in the space. And then by the time I went home, I was just like, I'm not getting it. Like, I took on its energy, and I was like, I'm not getting attention. And like, whatever was feeling, I projected that onto my partner. And then that was a whole thing. Actually, wow. Okay. This is all coming together with something else I was thinking about. But anyways, yeah, so I I went to work the next day, and I was just like, oh, okay, this was happening. So I like made this like friendship tea, or this friendship incense blend that I make with herbs, and like kind of like took that back there. I was like, I love you, and it's cool, like, what's going on. And it basically told me, it's like, I want attention though. So I told the owner, I was like, hey, you know, the energy's weird again, and from what I'm hearing is that it just wants attention. You want some appreciation. But then this is my thing too, where it's like, I don't know what happened in this space, but like this spirit feels drawn here. And what they're saying with Dolores Cannon's work is that it's an echo of the spirit. And so it lingers in that way, and it's like not the actual soul or entity. It's not an actual thing. It's just like an echo, like almost like a holographic image, which is kind of cool, actually. And so it's like, the more you work with it, the less fear you have for it, which for me, I mean, I've definitely, especially even with that particular ghost, I have instances where I'm just like, oh shit, I'm not gonna fuck with you. Like, I'm not going back there. I pissed you off, and sorry. Which is interesting too with like ghosts. They tend to like linger in like thresholds. Like, there's this one spot. If it's not like, if I'm not feeling in the hallway, if it's not just chilling, there's like this spot in the back between, like, when you walk to the back of the shop, there's a door, and then there's another door, which is weird feng shui, and like a little hallway, but it's like a door to the lab and then a door to the back. And like in between the lab door and the shop door, there's like, that's kind of where it hangs out too, especially when it's not happy. I'm like, oh. And then it'll come forth like into, like, because there's also like a little kitchen room, and then you have the shop. So then it comes to that threshold, and like sometimes I like, when it's really talking to me, that's when I feel it. It's like right there, and I'm just like, ah. And when I first started working there, I had no idea. And it was like the second time, and I was working by myself, and I was feeling really anxious to the point where I had to like walk outside. I was like pacing the shop, and I walk outside, and then I was like doing my thing, and I was like, look, you got to chill. Like, I'm trying to close down. Like, and then I found out a couple weeks later, I didn't even ask. It just kind of came up in conversation that there was like ghosts there. And I was like, that makes so much sense. So much sense. So, with ghosts, yeah. So sometimes, cleansing your house, that's not the way to really get rid of them. I mean, it's like, you might have to get a medium if you don't feel comfortable yourself with, connecting with them and being like, hey, like, this is what's going on, what happened, why are you here? And like, you know, it's okay. There's assistance on this side and you have to make this transition. I've never, I mean, I know that's the thing that mediums do. I've never done it. I might down the road, you know. But yeah, so that's kind of how that works. Also, as far as ghosts and earthbound spirits, because I feel like they're pretty much, whoo, almost shot my amethyst. They're pretty much the same thing. Earthbound spirits can also be spirits that are tied to the earth due to excessive grief from loved ones. So say if like something happened, someone died, and you know this person just can't let them go, they'll end up tying that spirit, that soul to the earth. So you know, like grieve, but don't be excessive about it, and like let it go. And then there's another earthbound spirit, which is like the sleepwalking spirits, which is kind of like the ghosts, where they just happen to have difficulty transitioning between the planes, and they're confused, and at some point, like they're unaware of that assistance there, and so they just, you know, tie themselves to those familiar places like a home or work or something like that, and yeah, they just, you know, that's when mediums are coming in handy to like really help them, you know, move along. So let's go. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up with elementals, and I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, since I brought up, you know, the demons and stuff like that. But elementals they are part of the like first dimension or the first level of the plane, if you want to look at it like that, and they are just pure emotions and energy, and they are shaped by the nature of the world. And so they're very basic. They're like that first, like I said, the first level of existence. They originated with the formation of the earth and whatever this reality is. And so, you know, that's that. They also don't have an individual personality. And so they, at some point, this is the first stage before, you know, they begin to evolve. But I heard, and I was kind of confused about this, so I had to do my own research. But in the book that she mentioned that they can't evolve, or I think the ones that are the negative elementals, I guess, they can evolve because of that vibrational frequency or whatever. They're kind of like stuck and attached to the earth or stuck in that level, and it's like they kind of are like warped and trapped, I think is how that goes. But I got to do some more research on that and report back. And then the second level is going to be the protectors of nature, and those are what we consider to be fairies, gnomes, leprechauns, sprites, stuff like that. They are kind of mischievous in nature, but they are kind-hearted spirits. I have had experience with I've just seen them visually, and I have seen that whenever I do see them is when I record a video or take a picture or something outside, and it usually picks up the light. And I feel like they're always there, but you might not be able to see them unless you're on a certain vibrational frequency, even though they're a second level kind of energy being. I think in order to perceive them, because they don't usually manifest into a physical form. They're just energy as well. They're spirits. So they're in the spiritual plane. But you can, I think if you have a certain vibrational frequency within yourself, you can see them. And so that's happened to me recently. And the first time it happened, because otherwise I wouldn't know what it was. I was watching this video on like some guy talking about chemtrails or some shit, some black hole I went into, and conspiracy theories, because you know how Aquarians do. And so he was outside recording this video, and he had mentioned fairies. And within like 10 seconds of him mentioning that, like one just kind of like darted across the screen. And I was like, oh shit, was that a fucking fairy? And I looked at the comments of the video, and like other people commented too. It's like, oh dude, there was a fairy, da da da. So that was kind of cool. And ever since I saw that in that video, that's when I started seeing them in my videos and in pictures, and I see them in other people's videos. And I mean, I've never had any interaction. I've just seen them there. Some people, I'm sure, are very connected to those earth energies. I know my partner is very connected to nature and wildlife in general, so I feel like he's connected to. Like he definitely likes not the Sprites, but I can't remember the name of them. But anyways, I mean, it's nature and weather, and God, I can't remember the name of those things. And one of my best friends, she is definitely like a mermaid. She's like a sea fairy. And so I'm like, well, maybe I do have some connection to that realm, because like all my close friends are connected to, and I'm definitely connected to nature. So, and animals. So that could be that. Um, but yeah, that is all I guess I have to offer on these different spirits. And I hope you enjoy this. I have just officially launched my Serpent Science community on Patreon, and I'll put the link for that in the description of this video. But if you like this video, if you like this topic, definitely join my Serpent Science community, because I offer, depending on what tier that you're in, which I think it's the third tier, the practitioner, I offer classes on, this could be a class specifically on how to connect with your guides, or how to, get rid of a ghost in your home or something like that. I do offer classes on metaphysics, occult, astrology, tarot, all of those things. And if you're a member and a practitioner of the Serpent Science community, then you can vote on what you want to learn, what topic you want. So it's not me just picking something and throwing something at you. Also, if you are in the seeker, if you're the seeker tier, then you also get to, the seeker and the practitioner get to participate in the live Q&A. So you can definitely sit with me live, and we can talk about this stuff, because I always like talking about this stuff. So definitely check out the Serpent Science Patreon. And even if you can't pledge or commit at the time, I definitely, like this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's going to be on my Patreon. So there's going to be other things that are free to the public as well. So just be a part of the community, and like comment on the videos, and just share all of the things. And I love you guys. Follow me on Instagram at Urania_universe, and at Serpent Science. I love you guys. Take care.